I would like to first give my full-throated support to Chris Long. This is precisely what I was talking about yesterday when I said no other white player in the NFL feels along the same lines about the protest as any of the black players. And Stephen A., we talked about this, and you brought up Chris Long correctly. And I'm never claiming, as Chris Long just explained, that any player, white or black, should kneel if that's not the way they feel. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about supporting their brethren, their coworkers, their peers. And that is precisely what Chris Long just articulated. And I love the symbolism because we talked on the show yesterday, Stephen A., and I brought up Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese, how Pee Wee Reese, and I admitted, I prefaced it, and you mentioned it afterward, the idea that it's not a perfect parallel. But the general spirit is Pee Wee Reese put his arm around Jackie Robinson. He literally did, because he let the fans know, I'm with him. And Chris Long, and he just articulated so precisely and beautifully what he just did. I don't kneel for the anthem. I always stand because that's how I feel about it. We live in America. We're all allowed to feel the way we feel. But I want to show my peers that I support them if they are being ostracized or otherwise pressured because of their beliefs, because of the way they feel about something. And he went over and, like Pee Wee Reese, put his arm around him. Excellent, Chris Long. Excellent. I can't say it enough. I feel exactly as I felt about LeBron James the other day, about Kevin Durant, Stephen A., the way you said you were proud of him, and maybe even a little bit more in this case because the question has begun to reverberate. Where are the white players? Not to kneel for the anthem. I would never suggest anyone kneel for the national anthem. I don't, because I choose to see what makes this country great, including the idea that you can kneel for the national anthem. My way of respecting that is by standing up. That's how I feel about it. But if someone else feels that their conscience won't allow them to, I support that. I would like to hear why, but especially given the reasons that Colin Kaepernick has articulated and others, I say, well, yes, actually, those happen to be excellent reasons. And because Stephen A., I do believe in American exceptionalism. I do believe that we are great, and we are great precisely because Chris Long puts his arm around his teammate who has the right to kneel, during the anthem. So I'm very proud. I'm proud of Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and now Chris Long.
You know, it's interesting because obviously I brought Chris Long up yesterday, and I had the pleasure in the past, when I was working at Fox, obviously Howie Long worked there, and I never worked with him directly, but we spoke all the time. I just think he's such a fantastic man and a fantastic person. It doesn't surprise me at all that his children, Chris and Kyle, are the kind of individuals that would speak out against this because it ain't too many people that I know that are better than Howie Long. I love that brother. Having said all of that, I want to also point out this reality. I think a lot of times when we see this, and it certainly wasn't wrong for you to point that out, Max, in terms of what's needed, in terms of white participation, there's no doubt about that. But I also think that on many, many occasions throughout American history, there's a lot of white folks that don't get credit for the level of activism that they showed. Civil rights era, against the Vietnam War, along with various other things that have taken place throughout the years since then. Certainly, they don't outnumber black folks. They don't outnumber the desolate and the disenfranchised and those who have bigotry and prejudice exacted against them. Nobody's trying to proclaim that. But in the world that we live in, I think we have to take into account consideration the fact that if you didn't have white Americans who ingratiated themselves into a situation because morally and spiritually it was just something that they simply could not tolerate, America would not have been able to make the progress that it has made. Now, the reality is that we have far too many racists that still exist in this country. We have far too many folks that are allowed to sit up there and spew their hatred and their rhetoric and their bigotry and what have you. And that's something that we have to do. We have to continue to do something to work about and to work diligently against that. But throughout American history, whenever there has been oppression, there has always been, albeit a few, some white folks who have stood up and have been willing to put their lives on the line and their livelihoods on the line, just as black people were willing to do in order to sit up there and push us forward. So I think in the interest of fairness, it's important to point that out, that whereas we can appreciate where Chris Long is coming from, where Kyle Long was coming from, knowing their daddy Howie the way that I do and beyond, we can appreciate the efforts that they put forth. But in the same breath, let's not act like it's completely foreign to us. This show is perfect evidence of that. I am the black man on this show. I know what bigotry and prejudice and racism and all of that stuff is about. I've experienced it. I know what it's like to be profiled just because you're black, driving while black and walking while you're black and being in certain areas because you're black and all of this other stuff. I know it far more intimately than a white person would. But I'm on a show with a guy by the name of Max Kellerman, who's my brother, okay, who's one of the best people that I know on this earth, okay, who's as conscientious and as educated and as passionate about these issues as anybody that I would know. Everybody can't be Max Kellerman now because you are a different brother. But the bottom line is you are a brother in the most authentic sense of the word. I love you for it. And there are others out here who are like Max Kellerman, who look like him, not just feel like him. And it's incumbent upon African Americans like myself and many others to recognize that, because we can't come together as a nation if we're unwilling to admit and acknowledge that publicly, which is why I just did it.